this is Zach. Thank you for tuning into my channel. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, and hit the Cash App if you have an opportunity. I'm coming in to bring almost, it's one after this one, in story to kind of my life story leading up to my arrest and giving everything that's going on. But last where I left off was talking about my federal arrest, my demise into my federal arrest that happened to me. The one after that, I'm kind of talk about being in federal prison, getting out, starting over and then screwing up and then having to start over again. You know, that's how I ended up, and bring us right down to the podcast. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I think where I left off was talking about the dream that I had, the plan, the scheme that I had to make me a millionaire, to take care of my daughter, to move on. What had happened was I was going to open up bank accounts in inmates' names that are doing life, put money into those accounts, take the money out, tell the bank that someone stole my money, have them replace the money. That was kind of my dream of doing that multiple times to the point where I had over $1 million, which probably would have been smarter to do it one time, you know, but anyway, you know how it is. They didn't have enough money to take it out and do it enough, so I had to do it multiple times to make that kind of money. And what generally happened to me is putting that plan in action, I realized that it can't just be my wife and I doing that. Then I naturally have to have people working for me that's out doing it. Because there's a lot of backdrop work into setting that up. That's not just something you just automatically do. It takes work. It takes mental preparation. You have to actually find the person to do it. You have to find someone that's capable of opening up bank accounts. Some people, once they screw over a bank, they put you on a list for 5 to 10 years and you can't open up an account. You have to be able to produce the paperwork necessary to get an ID. You have to know the restrictions. You have to, wherever you're getting an ID, it has to be in a state that they've never lived in. I mean, there's a lot of backdrop information in putting a plan like that into action. And what happened was I thought about all of the scenarios, worked them out in my head, laid them out on paper, and started executing the plan. It went the basics of the plan went very well, but it was some of the small factors that I didn't count on that went badly, which was finding people to assist me in executing, finding quality people to assist me in executing the plan. That's where I had a lot of problems. I wanted to deal with people that were criminal-minded, that wouldn't mind putting themselves out there doing this. And so I talked to a lot of people whom I met that were in jail or from jail, and found out a lot of those people have drug habits that control their lives, and it wouldn't allow them to put in the work and time necessary to get it done, which kind of led to my demise. Because I couldn't find quality people, this is what led to the person who's solely responsible for, I wouldn't say solely, because my committing the crime itself is what put me in prison, but it's the person responsible for leading the police directly to me. And it's absolutely amazing. It's one of those things that when I think about in life, it's kind of like you turn this one corner, and had I avoided that entire corner, you know, my life would have been a whole lot different. And I probably wouldn't be here giving you this good information on my podcast. So, all right, so that person's name was Mary. Now, I had described that in putting this type of organization or this scheme together, in order to protect me from dealing with all the unsavory people that I was dealing with that's having to do it, I hired a secretary. Her name was JoJo. JoJo would be the one that would field the calls from the people who were going out, opening the accounts, answer their basic questions, and only come to me if there's something complex. She also did some of their travel arrangements and put things in order for them. That was very important, because that's basically how it works out. It's you need someone that's going to kind of be a front and take the brunt of all the calls. What she would do is answer most of the calls, book most of the reservations for the people, and keep them in line. And as I mentioned, the person that kind of brought me down was introduced to me through one of my coworkers, or somebody I worked with, named, we used to call Polar Bear. Apparently Polar Bear had told this girl that I had been scamming and she might be a good match. And so apparently she called and impressed JoJo enough that even though JoJo blocks me from a majority of calls, JoJo called me one day and told me on the phone, like, hey, you need to talk. I got a call from this woman named Mary. I said, yeah, what's up? She goes, I think you need to talk to her. I said, okay, what about her? She goes, I think you need to talk to her. I said, all right, put her through. Let's see what's up. So she puts, the next time Mary calls, she puts her through, and I answer the phone for Mary. She's like, hi, my name is Mary. I said, what's up, Mary? She goes, you need me. I said, excuse me? She goes, you need me. I said, I need you? I need you for what? She goes, Polar Bear told me about the hustle you're running and what you got going on. And she goes, you need somebody like me out there working with you. I said, okay. What do you know about what I'm doing? She said, listen, look at my resume, look it over, tell me what you think, and then give me a call and let me know if you're interested at this number. So she'd give me a phone number to call. So what I would do, she told me to find her resume on the Department of Corrections website for Georgia. I said, hung up the phone. So then I went online and looked up her resume on the Department of Corrections website. And I saw that she had a list of theft and fraud crimes almost as long as mine. It was kind of impressive. Plus, she was kind of cute. She was a mix between like Filipino, Hawaiian, and black. So she was kind of attractive. But she definitely was into fraud, which kind of piqued my interest based on the fact that she called me up and told me that I needed her. So since she did that, then I'm like, well, maybe I do need you. So I ended up calling her back. So I called her back. She was in a part of the city. Part of Atlanta. Atlanta Metro is based up on a lot of different cities. She was in a city outside of the Atlanta Metro area called Fayetteville, which was Fayetteville County, and it was the city Fayetteville. It was way down south, probably about 45, 50 miles outside of downtown Atlanta. So we talked on the phone. I said, I do need you. So we agreed to meet. So we went down and we met with Mary, sat around and talked to her a little bit. And she actually made a good impression on my girl. You know, at the time, I think my girl was pregnant, and she's talking about her being pregnant and, ooh, girl, you know, blah, blah, blah. Made an impression on her, was flirtatious enough with me just to pique my interest. Like, yeah, we definitely need somebody like you on the team. So talking to her a little bit, I was excited. I said, okay, we want you to work with us. This is kind of what we're doing. She's like, oh, that's easy. I got that. So I'm like, great. So our deal was we were going to show her exactly how we do something like this. And we were going to do it in Florida, where we were going down, I guess, to see our parents before she had the baby, because actually we were planning on moving to Utah. And before we moved, we wanted to go down and see our family before we say goodbye. So we decided that Mary would meet us in Tampa with our family to say goodbye. Plus, we would show her how to take the people's information and actually put on, get an ID in their name and everything, and start opening up accounts. Kind of going to be like a business and pleasure trip. The business was to show her what's going on, and the pleasure was for us to see our family. So we decided we'd meet Mary in a couple of days. We gave her some money, booked her a little hotel room, met up with her in a couple of days, and we all drove down to Tampa. So when we got down to Tampa, I went into the DMV. My girl went into the DMV. I think we all went in and put on, I don't think Mary did. No, Mary didn't do any that time. It was kind of us showing her what's going on. So we went in and got IDs and other people's names. I went into the bank and opened up an account. She went in with me. My girl went into the bank, opened up an account, and she went in with her. Both times we were thoroughly impressed. Mary had a natural rapport with other people. She had a rapport with me she was dealing with. She absolutely impressed me as somebody that could actually probably get this done. So after we had the day of going and getting the accounts open and getting the IDs, I was telling my girl, here's what we can do. We can actually ask her if she can find people. She could put the people to work, right? And I don't have to deal with anybody. Nobody has to meet me and think I'm a police officer, or if someone's on drugs, she has to deal with them. I will totally take myself out. We'll kind of make her a lieutenant. What we'll do is we'll do about $10,000 each account. And what we'll do is we'll flip the account and we'll split it with her. Rather than make 120 or 110 on the trip, rather than make 120, 110 on the trip, what we'll do is we'll just make 60. Have her do that 10 or 20 times and get enough money together to get our house and get some rental property and completely get out of the business. But what my mind was thinking is this takes me out of the equation and puts her in it. All I do is operate the paperwork. All calls go through Mary and JoJo, and all I do is send the paperwork out. This was a dream. So I'm envisioning big money, right, doing this and getting out of the business completely. That was my dream. So once we all did all that, I made that proposition to Mary that we're going to split the money with you, split it in half. So we gave Mary a few $1,000s, rented her a car, told her to go up to Georgia and get herself situated, get her an apartment, somewhere to live, because she didn't have anywhere to live. She was staying place to place. Said, get you somewhere to live, start recruiting and rounding up people. Let us know if you need any more money. So she jumped in the car and left. Now, what happened to us was, did we leave at the same time? Because I think we left a little bit after she did. So she was heading to Georgia and we were heading to Georgia. The deal was once you got up there and got situated, I figured it'd take about a week, and let us know, and then we'll plan your first trip. So I had talked to JoJo about where we want to send her. Probably the first trip, go somewhere in South Carolina because it's a drive, or in Tennessee. Just drive up to Nashville or Columbia, South Carolina and do it. Now, I remember this all being my plan. But I didn't want to rush her. I wanted her to take her time and do whatever she needed to do to get set up. We had given her $7,000 or $8,000. We actually gave her an identity that she could put on some female in prison and maybe rent an apartment in that name. We gave, because we had a couple of businesses, so it looked like that business looked like she had a job and we could verify employment. We had everything that she would have needed to get situated. And that's what I wanted her to do, just get situated and get ready to get going. So we had gotten back to Georgia. At that point in time, we had been back and forth to Utah and found a place to live, and we were actually planning our leaving. I remember all this because it had been, when I went back and checked, going back in my mind, when I went back and checked, it had actually been 2 weeks to the day that we hadn't heard from Mary. I had actually forgotten about her because from what my wife and I had done, we were good on money. So I actually kind of forgotten about her. I just knew that was something that would come up. But it was 2 weeks to the day, I get a call from JoJo. So JoJo gives me a call and I said, yeah, JoJo, what's up? She goes, hey, Mary's in jail. I'm like, what? She goes, Mary's in jail. I said, how did you know Mary's in jail? She goes, because she called me from the jail phone and she needs to get out. Right now she has a $2,000 bond and she's in jail. I'm like, okay. When she calls back, put her through. I'd like to know what happened. She said, okay, no problem. So Mary, because, you know, we rented Mary a car, gave her $7,000 or $8,000, and you have a $2,000 bond. You had that much money, plus you had, you know, the car. Like, I want to know what's going on before I agree to bond you out. So she calls. So when she puts Mary through, I asked Mary what happened. Mary's crying and wigging out. She's like, you got to get me out of here. You got to get me out of here. Oh my God, it's horrible. She's screaming about picking up somebody and them getting pulled over. And that person that she picked up had drugs in their pocket and she knew nothing about that. I got to get her out of there. But I remember while she's screaming and hysterical, I remember thinking to myself, oh no. Oh, she's on drugs. I've picked somebody and invested my heart and time into someone that's actually on drugs. That's what I remember thinking to myself. So as she's screaming, I got to get her out. I asked her, what are your charges? This is out of exhaustion. So she had one count of possession of possession of paraphernalia and drugs, right? And she's telling me that they charged her and the person that was in the car, and the bond was $2,000. Right? So she said she'll make it up to me as soon as she gets out. Of course, I asked her where the rental car was. She wasn't sure. She thinks the police towed it, but she didn't know where they towed it. So when I tried to find it, I couldn't find it. But she's telling me to get her out of jail, that she'll be willing to do one trip for free or the discount, whatever money I spend. And she, by the way, she didn't know what all her money, she claimed the police got that too, the money we had. But she said whatever I owe her or she owes me, that I could take it out of the first trip, but she's going to get this done. She's ready to work. So I'm taking a deep breath and telling myself, okay, so if she does, at least if she does a trip, I could give her a few $1,000s and I'll make back up everything I've lost invested in her, and I'll probably come out even. So I said, okay, no problem. We'll bond you out. So I tell, when I hang up from her, I tell JoJo, I said, okay. And by the way, JoJo had an assistant, kind of a little runaround, a guy that I used to send to pick up my mail in different P.O. boxes when I had it sent in. We had a run around. His name was Junior. His name was Junior. Junior was our runaround, and he'd be the one to drive and do things for us. All he wanted to do was stay in a rental car, so I kept him in a rental car, and so he drove around and took care of stuff for us. So I told her to bond Mary out. She said, you want me to get a bondsman? I said, no. I'm going to go ahead and direct deposit $2,000. At that time, I had a BlackBerry. And the way I had because I had not to give all the technical info, but I had a couple of corporate accounts and direct deposit and direct transfers. So I had it to where I could transfer money onto a prepaid card that about 5 people had, and it was almost immediate. It was about a 10-minute delay, and the money would appear. So I could transfer money on to JoJo's card. This is way before Cash App, by the way. And I mean, it was kind of Cash App, but it was before they had even apps. It was kind of a deposit that would happen immediately. It was a transfer. So I could transfer money onto JoJo's card or Junior's card. So what I did was I transferred $2,500 because the bond was $2,000. Told JoJo to have Junior go bond her out for $2,000. Get her out of jail. So I did that transfer. So they agreed. They're like, okay, we'll bond her out. I say, tell her to call me when she gets out. If she doesn't have a phone, tell Junior to take her one of the track phones, the little cheap track phones. Oh, by the way, we got Mary a phone also. So she can call me. All right, so I waited. I went to bed that night and got up the next morning. I was eating breakfast, and I get another phone call. It's JoJo. Hello? Hey, Mary's still in jail. I'm like, what? She goes, Mary's still in jail. I go, didn't you bond her out? She goes, yeah, we bonded her out, but she didn't get out. What happened was they put more charges on her, and now her bond is $4,000. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. He go, all of a sudden they brought more charges, and now her bond is $4,000. Her bond is $4,000. What are the new charges? Something about uttering a forged instrument and forgery. Oh my God. So naturally, Mary called. She's hysterical, begging me to get her out, that I got to get her out of there. She can't deal with it, that she's going to make it all up. She's going to work and I can keep whatever I want. Just to make it out, I just need to get her out of jail. Just like the patsy I am, I agreed. And I said, okay, bond her out. You want me to get a bondsman, JoJo asked? I said, no, I'm going to send you $4,500 cash, have Junior go down and put the money, take the cash bond and bond her out. That way when she goes to court, we can just get the money back maybe. Okay, no problem. All right, so then the next day or like early, like 5, 6 in the morning, I forgot when it was, JoJo calls me up. Hello? Yeah, Mary's still in jail. I'm like, what? She goes, Mary's still in jail. She's still in jail? What the, all right, did you bond her out? Yes. Well, why is she still in jail? Well, apparently she got some more charges. Now her bond is $6,000. What? Her bond now is $6,000. She got some more uttering a forged instrument and forgery charges. Oh. Oh, man. Of course, she calls hysterical. You got to get me out. I'm going to do whatever. I'll do 2 trips. Da, 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 da. I said, okay, okay. Bond her out. Okay. You want me to know, bondsman? I'm going to send you the cash. Just go get her out of there. Now she definitely owes me 2 trips because I'm probably about 30 grand into her. No problem. We'll bond her out. No problem. So we send the 6 grand. They bond her out. They call me up about 14 hours later. Hello? Yeah. Now her bond is $10,000. Did you? Yes. And they, yes, bought more charges. So this time when Mary called, I said, Mary, shut up, shut up. All that hysterical screaming, what is going on? Why are you getting all these charges? She says there's a detective there in town that hates her guts, that he's been after her forever and he hates her. And what happened was she apparently wrote some checks and now he's bringing them a little bit at a time as she's bonding out. I said, are you serious? She's like, yes. So I'm like, well, how many of these charges do you have? She goes, I think that's all of them. I said, okay, good. No, all right, no problem. So the bond's 10 grand. She definitely owes me. So JoJo says, you want me to bond her out? Yes. But this time, do use a bondsman. Have Junior sign it. So this time, a $10,000 bond is $1,000 plus a little bit of deposit. So I ended up paying $2,000 to get a $10,000 bond, her $10,000 bond paid and bonded out. So once we go through the bondsman, that process took a little bit longer. So once we go through the bondsman, JoJo calls me up. Hello? Yeah. She's still in jail and this time her bond's $14,000. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Mary calls up hysterical and now her bond's $14,000. I told her, I said, Mary, listen, we're chasing our tails. I don't know what's going on. You gotta get me out of here. You gotta get me out of here. Oh my God. Oh my God. Hey, listen, calm down, calm down. All right, here's what we're gonna do. My girl, when we were in trouble in Georgia, we hired this awesome lawyer. His name is Adrian. I won't give his last name. He's out of Atlanta, has a great office. I'm gonna call Adrian and ask Adrian if he would go get a bond for you. Now, I wanna point something out. Obviously, hindsight, these are all atrocious decisions. And I only get worse and worse and worse. Every bad decision just led me to my federal sentence in crime. Had at any point I done anything different, I would not have met Matt Cox in prison. If I had done any one thing different, that wouldn't have happened. But I did exactly these stupid things that led to my arrest. One of the stupidest things I did that led to my arrest is hiring an attorney that is familiar with me and my wife and my old case for Mary, whom I've only known one time and met. So I hire that attorney. The attorney gets hired. I pay him. He tells me I'll go down and see what's going on and I can get her a bond, give me $10,000. So I'm like, for 10 grand, you're going to go get her a bond. Yes. I'm like, oh my God. So we sent him $10,000 to handle her case. He says, I'm going to go down there today and talk to her and see what's going on. I said, thank you so much. So I tell Mary, listen, we got an attorney. He's going to come and we're going to try to work something out to see if we can rectify this situation. So he goes down and he talks to her. This was like a Saturday because it was a weekend day, I remember. And when he comes out of the meeting with her, he calls me up and he says something that you never want to hear an attorney that you've hired for someone else say. So he calls up and I say, hey, what's going on, Adrian? What happened? He goes, I made a mistake and you've made a mistake. And he got quiet. And I said, what? He said, I made a mistake and you made a mistake. I said, okay. I said, what type of mistake did I make? He said, you made the mistake of not telling me that this girl did not actually know who you are and that you don't know this girl. I said, okay. I said, well, what kind of mistake did you make? He said, when I walked in to meet her, she asked me your real name and I told her your real name. And her reaction was, oh, that's his real name. And he said, at that point, I realized I just told her something that she didn't know. So he's basically telling me that if this girl didn't know you to be able to report you, she does know you now because I told her your real name. Something like that, you think, would have led me in a completely different direction, but it didn't. He still went on. I still talked to her. He still went on to set up a bond hearing, which he told me. He's like, I'm going to get her a bond. I set her a bond hearing for about 4 days from now. I let Mary know in 4 days she's going to get a bond hearing, and they're going to set a bond, and we're going to work it out. So he went to the bond hearing. Now, Adrian informed us that the cop that Mary was talking about that had something against her did show up to the bond hearing, and Adrian said he even asked him who hired him. And he said, that's none of your concern. I don't know why you're asking me that. But he showed up. So when he came out of the bond hearing, and this is what's so bizarre about Mary, because all phone calls pertaining to her were always not like normal calls. So when he came out of the bond hearing, he said, okay, I've got good news and I've got bad news. I said, okay, great. What's the good news? He said, the good news is the judge told the cop that I don't care how many charges she has, because he explained to me what was going on. He said, basically what had happened is Mary had been going around to different Walmarts and was writing checks and buying gift cards for $300 and $500. So she'd go in, write a check, and buy a gift card for $300, $500. He said what happens was for each check, they give her 2 charges. They give her an uttering a forged instrument charge, and they'd give her a forgery charge. He said for each charge, they would give her a bond of $1,000. So for each check, each charge would be $1,000. So each check would be a $2,000 bond. So he said, what happened was the judge told the cop, listen, why are you sprinkling these charges on? He goes, if you have any charges to bring against her, I'm giving you 24 hours to bring those charges. He says after 24 hours, like 26, 25 hours from now, any charge you bring, she's automatically OR'd bond on it. So he's basically saying if you bring 5 charges today, the bond will be set at $2,000 for each check. And he says, after that, I'm going to give her OR on each check that you bring after tomorrow. I said, okay, now we're working. And he said, all right, now the bad news. He said, the bad news is Mary wrote 67 checks. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, the total checks that she wrote is 67. So the next day when the officer brought Mary her charges, all of them, and it was, I think he had bought a total of about 8 or 9 charges against her. So he had 59 to go, and he hit her with every one of them. It was $2,000 for each charge, making Mary's bond like over $250,000. So when her bond hit, and it was like almost over $300,000, Mary called up hysterical that she didn't care what it cost. I needed to get her out, that she was going to make it up. She'll work for me for a year for nothing. Just get her out of there. She got me, is what she's screaming. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. Matter of fact, when JoJo, after a hysterical call of 10 minutes of her screaming and yelling, I hung up the phone. JoJo asked me, like, what do you want to do? I said, okay. I said, call some bondsmen, JoJo, and let me know what has to happen to get her bonded out. So JoJo made the call to a couple of bondsmen, and I talked to one of them. Matter of fact, I was in my office one night about 8:39, and I had him on speakerphone, and I'm jotting it down. As the bondsman's telling me, okay, her bond is like $326,000. He's like, so I'm going to need at least 15%, which is about $45,000. And I'm going to need you to put up your house. So if she doesn't go to court, actually it was 2 houses because we had 2 homes at that time, where if she doesn't go to court, then I'm actually going to own both of your homes. So I'm going to need about 45 grand. I need you to put up both houses. He said, if you bring that paperwork and money by tonight, I'll have her out by in the morning. Right? So I'm like, I'm writing it down. He said, you got me? He said, are you coming by? I said, I don't know yet. He said, all right, well, let me know. And he hung up the phone. And as he hung up the phone, I hear a noise in the background, and I look, and it was my wife. And she looked at me, right? And she's saying to me, she's like, if you bond her out, then I know you fucked her. And she turned around and walked out of the room, right? So then I'm sitting there looking at the criteria I need to bond Mary out, realizing that I had probably already spent about more than $40,000 just to find out that I need to spend $45,000. And she never even earned me 1 penny. That was the dilemma I was faced with. So unfortunately, I chose not to bond her out. What had happened was Adrian called and said he'd been talking to the prosecutor and that he had good news that the prosecutor agreed that if she would plead guilty to all of the charges, he would give her a 3-year prison sentence in just 3 years in prison. Adrian told me that one of his closest friends that he went to law school with is on the parole board. He says, I promise you she won't even do a year. I said, well, that's not a bad deal for 67 bad checks, no probation, just 3 years in prison. So, of course, I presented that to Mary, and she got hysterical and said she wanted out of there now. And I'm like, there's no way I can get you out of there. That bond's too high. Just take the deal and deal with it. Just take the deal. That's what I was telling her. Now, in the process of all this, my wife and I we had moved to Utah, and so we were getting set up there in our place. We had already driven and flown over when all this is going on, and we were in Utah. Now, what we were planning was to go back and get our daughter baptized, right? So we were going to fly back home, and that was a big thing. We had a date set up and everything. Like, hey, on this day, we're flying back to Tampa to get our daughter baptized. On this day, we're flying back to Tampa to get our daughter baptized. And so everybody knew this. This was because it was going to be a trip, because I was going to be out of commission for about 3 or 4 days. So I wanted everybody to know, including Mary, like an idiot. So what had happened was, I guess Mary had accepted her fate. And so we were just calling and talking and kicking the bobo. And a couple of times she'd call and she'd ask about what was going on. She was asking JoJo about what type of work she did for me. And like idiots, we completely told her everything over the phone because we think we're just calming her down. So what happened at that point is the day before we're flying to Tampa, right? No, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what happened was the night before we were to fly into Tampa, I get a phone call from Mary and JoJo. So apparently Mary had given JoJo someone's social security number that was in jail. So she goes, I gave JoJo the social security number of one of my friends here in jail. And I said, why would you do that? I said, why would you? I don't want you to do anything like that. I just want you to take this sentence, go up there, do your time. We're going to support you the whole time and come back. You don't need to be giving anybody social security numbers. She's like, well, no problem. I just thought I'd pass it out to her. I said, no problem. I said, okay, just don't do that stuff anymore. She goes, I apologize. I won't do it anymore. Thank you, Zack Allen. And I said, okay, no problem. So I said, all right, well, I'll talk to you two ladies later. And I hung up the phone. And because the next day we were getting ready to go. So I'm jumping in the shower to take a shower that night before we left in the morning. So what happened, we're in Utah now. This is 2 hours time difference backwards. As I'm in the shower, something dawns on me. I'm like, wait a minute. Mary called my entire name out on the phone. Like, ever since I've known her, I've never heard her say my name. And for some reason, this last phone call, she said my entire name. Weird. The next morning when we wake up, or we're woken up by phone calls from Junior. So Junior calls us and says they kicked in JoJo's house today and took JoJo to jail. I'm like, what? He said last night at about 2 in the morning, they came and kicked in JoJo's door and took her to jail. I said, oh my God, why would they do that? They said, I don't know. They said, I'm here with JoJo's mom. Junior's, who worked with JoJo, a friend of hers, he's like, I'm at JoJo's house with her mom. He said it was everything they could do to beg the police to allow JoJo to call her mom in order to come get her kids. But they kicked in her door and they took her to jail. I said, oh my God. Now, JoJo lives in Atlanta proper, like in the hood, in the middle of Atlanta. So Atlanta is Fulton County. So I tell him that they take her to Fulton County. I'm going to call and see about getting her bonded out. He's like, no, she's not in Fulton County. She's actually in Fayette County. She's in the same jail as Mary. I'm going, but she lived in Fulton County. So the fact that she lived in Fulton County means that the Fulton County police would have to arrest her, take her to jail, and then the Fayette County police would have to claim her from the Fulton County jail. There's no way she's in Fayette County already. He's like, listen, they came right from Fayette County and kicked in her door and took her to jail in Fayette County. They didn't take her to no Fulton County jail. Her mom is very upset. When I call Mary, JoJo doesn't have a bond yet. She has to go and see the judge the next day to get a bond. Now, me and my wife panic, like my heart sinks, like what the hell is going on? So my wife is telling me, which is very insightful, she's like, do you think we should be going to Tampa with them just picking up JoJo? I go, well, I don't see what the problem is. JoJo's in Georgia. She goes, yeah, but everybody knows that we're flying to Tampa. So I say, listen, we're not flying to Georgia. We're flying to Florida. So we're going to leave here and go, and we're going to land in Florida. We're going to fly over Georgia. So yeah, it's fine for us to go. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on in Georgia. So my wife says to me, she goes, I'm going to do whatever you tell me. She goes, but please know that if anything happens, I want it on the record that I'm absolutely against this. So I was the idiot that said, no, we're still going to go on our trip. This is the Georgia police. What can the Georgia police do in Florida? So we get on the flight in Utah, fly over Georgia as planned, and land in Florida. By the way, on the plane, a guy sat next to me whom I would have sworn was the police. If you'd have asked me, he was friendly and courteous, and I do believe it was an agent. I think the agent was there to make sure that I didn't try anything funny on the plane, or if I don't know why he was there, but I think I would have sworn he was an agent. He was very courteous and friendly. So when we landed in Florida to get our daughter baptized, as soon as I step off the plane, I'm grabbed and handcuffed. This is the guy, let's go. My wife is taken. She's not handcuffed, but she's led away. They put me in cuffs. They say my name, Mr. Zachary. Zachary, we got you, Zach. I said, oh, because in my pocket, I have the driver's license of a complete other identity of a gentleman serving life in prison. I'm like, whoa, you got the wrong guy. You got the wrong, I am not Zach. My name is Albert. They're like, your name is Albert. Yes, I'm Albert. They go, do you have ID, Albert? Matter of fact, I do. So then I reach in my pocket and hand him my absolutely legitimate Utah ID with Albert's name, date of birth, and my picture on it. And the guy that's arresting me looks at it, flips it over, and then just sticks it in his back pocket. Yeah, put your hands behind your back, Zach. Let's go. He, basically like, wow, this is a whole new felony. All right, let's go to jail, big dog. I was arrested. So to give a backdrop of kind of what happened, which is a bunch of investigations, even Matt's going to help me kind of dissect it and put it into place and put it together. We're going to do Freedom of Information Act request. Basically what happened was, I believe Mary told the detective that the crimes that I was committing because I outlined my plan. She told the detective the name and of who we perpetrated when we took her to Florida and trained her, which allowed them to get warrants in Florida for our arrest. I guess at that point, the detective that was after her used her as a cooperating witness and basically contacted the FBI, who arranged for me to be arrested once I landed on the plane. I would assume, because I told Mary that I was flying to Florida, I assumed that the operation was the day that he gets ready to fly to Florida, we'll put this all in motion. They actually broke, in my opinion, broke the law. One county went into another county and made an arrest. And JoJo was arrested that day for possessing the social security number of another person, which I have no idea, I've never thought was a crime. She didn't even have the card. It's the fact that she had somebody else's number that they arrested her when we invested. I'm like, wow, is that really a crime? Is that a crime, especially when you had someone give her that number? It's not like she goes, give me your damn number, or I'm gonna shoot you. So they did all of that to arrest little old me on the tarmac in Tampa, Florida, and to put me in prison for 15 years. It's amazing the extents they go through to stop my fraud for over 20 years. But I give them credit, it worked. So at that point, this is my federal charge. I'm arrested, I'm in jail. They let my girl go. The agent came and talked to me. And the agent, the case agent was a complete asshole. Well, I say he's an asshole. I personally didn't like him, and I think he's an asshole. But I had the opportunity to use my Matrix line, my favorite line from the Matrix on him, because he's telling me, he's like, Mr. Allen, we understand that you got quite a career of fraud going on, and I'm gonna make you a deal. He goes, if you give me all the information of all the people that you frauded and what bank, if you give me that, then I'm gonna make a recommendation for sentencing that you not get that much time, right? And he goes, I mean, that was the deal that he offered me. And I got to use my Matrix line from Neo, and I said, you know what? I've got a better deal for you. How about I give you the finger, and you give me my phone call. In the end, I got a 15-year sentence, so being that jerk didn't work out too well for me. But that begins kind of the final chapter of my story, is I'm gonna tell you about my time in prison, how I met Matt, what I learned, what I went through in there, because I got in a little trouble in prison also, and got out and tried to rebuild myself, fell down again, but got back up, and this time keeping it on the straight and narrow. So do me a favor. If you like my stories, hit that like button And if you're not a subscriber already, hit the subscribe. If you are a subscriber, get me a friend. I'm trying to build my numbers up. Please leave a comment. Anything on Cash App is appreciated. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in to hear my life story. I'll talk with you guys soon. Bye.